Testing. All right.
Now you see why you push it back.
I see that. You can't really push it back. Yeah, I'll sit back. Yeah, thanks.
start on time. What do you think?
Absolutely.
And I got about 30 seconds or so. What do you got?
Same thing. I got whatever you got.
Oh,
You're
come
the
on,
boss.
partner. Great Scott, is this mic on?
Yeah, so
Yep, you're on. You're ready to go.
What are you doing?
It's telling you.
Well, I think we'll start on time. What do you think? Good morning. Welcome to today's hearing on the state of Social Security's information technology. Before we dive into this important subject, I'd like to take a few words of thanks since this is the last hearing I plan to hold as a subcommittee chairman. As chairman, I've focused on many challenges facing Social Security, including the need to modernize the disability program, combat fraud, protect Americans from identity theft, and make sure our children and grandchildren can count on Social Security, just like seniors and individuals with disabilities do today. And I thank my colleagues on the Social Security Subcommittee for the honor of serving with them on behalf of the American people. I also want to thank the subcommittee staff who work behind the scenes to help make our successes possible. In particular, I want to recognize Amy Short, Kim Hildreth, and Ted McCann, as well as Catherine Olson. They're all behind us, I think. I'm proud to say that one of this subcommittee's recent successes is the bipartisan representative pay bill that became law earlier this year. And John, we did this together, and I want to give you a copy of the bill. You have been a good friend, and it's been a pleasure to lead this subcommittee with you. God bless you. I appreciate you, partner.
you too, partner.
Where's the bill? There it is. And I wrote a note on it.
Oh,
God bless you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I especially appreciate the handwritten note at the bottom. God bless you.
God bless you, sir. It's been a pleasure working with you.
An honor to work with you.
I'm proud to say that one of our subcommittee's recent successes is a bipartisan representative pay bill that became law earlier this year. John, we did it together, and I want to give you a copy of the bill. You have been a good friend, and it's been a pleasure to lead this subcommittee with you. And all I want to do is say God bless you. Now, back to the issue at hand, Social Security information technology. While Social Security faces many challenges, information technology is among the most critical to providing the exceptional service Americans expect and deserve. And that's why over the years, the subcommittee has continued to focus on this important topic. In fact, the first hearing that I ever held as chairman back in 2011 was on replacing Social Security's aging data center. Although Social Security now has modern hardware and modern data centers, its employees are still using software that's decades out of date. And about 30% of these legacy systems still use COBOL codes, an ancient programming language that isn't even taught in schools anymore. Good morning.
Good morning.
Maintaining systems that old isn't easy. These outdated systems require extra training for employees, and these systems also make it hard for Social Security to respond as needed to changes. Now, not to mention the simple fact that it is expensive to maintain old custom-built systems. But I also have some good news to share. After releasing a modernizing plan last October, Social Security has started to make some real progress in bringing the agency's information technology into the 21st century. Social Security is undergoing a technology transformation that is long overdue. These changes will not only make sure Social Security can quickly respond to new challenges, but also that the agency is serving Americans in a modern way. Social Security is finally on the way to getting rid of outdated green screen technology. But there is still a long way to go, and it's going to take consistent leadership at Social Security, and it's going to take continued oversight from Congress to make sure Social Security isn't just spinning its wheels. Social Security must learn from the mistakes of DCPS and other smaller projects like Click to Chat. This latter project ended up costing more than a double what Social Security's original expectation was. Taxpayers cannot afford IT projects that unnecessarily drag on for years or that double in cost. Social Security must find a way to better use private sector alternatives to keep out costs or keep the costs down and projects on schedule. Having a modern IT infrastructure is going to be critical for Social Security's future, and I look forward to hearing how Social Security can get there on time and on budget. Americans want, need, and deserve nothing less. I thank our witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to hearing their testimony. I now recognize Mr. Larson for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's with no small amount of sentiment that we gathered today, and what a great honor it is to serve with you in the United States Congress, and even more of an honor to have been the ranking member and to have been able to work with you in a collaborative nature in a time when solutions oftentimes elude the United States Congress, to work with somebody who's always put America first, who has always looked at the Social Security issues in a nonpartisan way, in a way in which all he's ever done throughout his life is to try to make the country a little safer and a little better. As a freshman member of Congress, one of the first bills I was able to get passed was a bill that created a history of the House of Representatives. Robert Remini, the historic figure, University of Chicago, authored that book. It's hard to imagine that one could sit in Congress on a committee and serve with Sam Johnson and John Lewis. But that is the nature of the Ways and Means Committee. And if you're not humbled by their service prior ever to coming to Congress, then you don't know much about American history or about the sacrifice and the character of this remarkable man. To watch him and to work with the staffs collectively, work his will, and always do it in the fairest and the most considerate, and as I think everybody acknowledges, one of the grand gentlemen of the United States Congress. So as he pointed out, to work on the lost payee bill together, but to work on so many other small initiatives. And just the cordiality and the camaraderie and the roll up your sleeves and get the job done attitude that he brings to Congress every day is pretty remarkable. It was also my great honor to create a medal in the United States Congress that's named after Sam Johnson and John Lewis for their incredible patriotism. Would it be there was more of that in Congress today and more getting after solutions? But I can say this without hesitation, that has always been his goal as the chairman of this committee. I so appreciate everything that he's been doing, and as he indicated, getting after fraud, getting after him, working on behalf especially of children and families and disability issues that he knows better than most because he's lived them. What an honor to serve with him, to serve alongside of him, and it's just, as I tell my children, it's just my hope that some of his true, genuine Americanism rubs off and helps you become a better person, having known and served with him. With that, we're excited to hear from our witnesses this afternoon. And again, the chairman has indicated the need for modernization and everything that we need to look at, to combat synthetic identity theft, to making sure that the delivery system that we have at Social Security, and especially the continuity that we know is so vitally important to the citizens we're sworn to serve, remains in place. I look forward to the hearing. And again, Mr. Chairman, tremendous debt of gratitude to be afforded the honor of serving with you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate those comments. God bless you. As is customary, any member is welcome to submit a statement for the hearing record. Before we move to our testimony today, I want to remind our witnesses to please limit your oral statements to 5 minutes. However, without objection, all of the written testimony will be made a part of the hearing record. We have 3 witnesses today. Seated at the table are Rajiv Mathur, Deputy Commissioner of Systems and Chief Information Officer of the Social Security Administration. Gail Stallworth Stone, Acting Inspector General of the Social Security Administration, and Carol Harris, Director, Information Technology Management Issues, Government Accountability Office. I thank you all for being here today. Mr. Mathur, welcome. Thanks for being here again, and please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Johnson, Ranking Member Larson, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss Social Security's information technology. I am Rajiv Mathur, Social Security's Chief Information Officer and Deputy Commissioner for Systems. Prior to joining the SSA in 2017, I worked in leadership roles in both the private and public sectors. Social Security touches the lives of nearly every person in America, whether at birth of a child, after a loss of a loved one, or at the onset of disability, or at the transition of work to retirement. In fiscal year 2018, we expect to pay over $1 trillion in benefits to an average of over 70 million monthly beneficiaries. Information technology is vital to nearly every aspect of the work we do to serve the public, from taking claims to protecting the sensitive personal information we maintain, to preventing fraud and improper payments in our programs across government. Most of our core systems are over 30 years old. Over the years, we've expanded their capabilities to keep up with the changes in our programs and business processes. However, much of the underlying design was set when they were first built. For example, our core systems rely on COBOL, which is the programming language from the 1950s. While these systems have performed admirably and have allowed us to provide uninterrupted service for many years, their underlying design limits what we can accomplish and our ability to adapt to change. It also makes these systems expensive to maintain, and as more of our IT workforce approaches retirement, we risk losing the institutional knowledge needed to maintain them. Accordingly, we have begun a 5-year plan to modernize our software, our hardware, infrastructure using modern code and architecture. And as we close our first year executing our IT mod plan, I'm happy to report that we're on schedule and on budget. Some of our accomplishments this year include eliminating the remaining green screens that our employees use to take SSI claims and replacing them with web-based interfaces, converting our remaining master file to an industry standard format. Looking ahead, I'm excited by what IT modernization has in store. In mid-fiscal year 19, we will release a minimum viable product. That's the first release of software to provide frontline employees with a person-centric view of the individual that they're serving, including the person's visits, the notices that they've received, and actions that may be pending on their case. This will eliminate the need for employees to access various systems for the information they need to provide great service, and it's one of the most commonly requested enhancements. In addition to modernizing systems, we also have been modernizing the structure of our organization, our IT organization, and the methods that we use to manage and develop IT. By strengthening internal collaboration and using agile methodologies, we have focused on delivering software capabilities early and continuously enhancing them based on direct feedback from the users. For example, we've been using Agile to develop DCPS2, which is a national common case processing system for state DDSs. We have regularly added functionality to DCPS2 as we've expanded it to 10 states, with 4 more joining soon, and 34 others that are scheduled for deployment. We are delivering products on time. Our systems are available to users 99.96% of the time, and we've reduced the number of IT outages. As CIO, one of my goals has been to build a modern IT organization for the next generation, one that is accountable, competent, transparent, and secure, one that is focused on understanding and meeting the needs of the public and our employees. We have a large IT enterprise and are working quickly to make big changes, even while we work to maintain the security and availability of our systems. And we continue to deploy needed software that, while it's not part of the modernization program, it's still built on modern technology. IT modernization is a significant investment. We will invest $691 million over the next 5 years, including the $280 million that Congress appropriated in FY18. We appreciate Congress's and particularly the subcommittee's support. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize Chairman Johnson. Mr. Chairman, you have long understood the direct connection between SSA's IT and its ability to serve the people who count on its programs. Thank you for your leadership on this issue and for being a champion of the Social Security program. On behalf of all of us at SSA, please accept my best wishes for your retirement. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that comment. Ms. Stone, welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Johnson, Ranking Member Larson, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the invitation to testify today. SSA administers programs that result in payments of more than $2.5 billion per day, and it holds sensitive data for more than 300 million people. SSA continues to rely on legacy coding and applications that are decades old. This is an unsustainable path. To ensure that SSA meets its increasing service delivery demands, the agency must modernize its IT infrastructure. For many years, the OIG has recommended that SSA commit to long-term strategic IT planning. Just last year, the agency issued its IT modernization plan, which is a multi-year effort to update SSA's major systems. The plan reflects investments of almost $700 million over 5 years to support various modernization efforts. This is a significant but necessary undertaking which will need close management and monitoring. We will review SSA's progress on these plans as a part of our 2019 audit work plan. One of SSA's major IT modernization efforts is the Disability Case Processing System, commonly known as DCPS. With DCPS, the agency envisions a national common case processing system for the 52 state disability determination services, or DDSs. SSA began planning this project in 2008. 7 years later, after spending about $350 million, the agency discontinued that effort and began developing a new version of DCPS. The agency delivered the first release of the new system to 3 DDSs at the end of 2016. By November 2017, employees in 10 DDSs were using the new system to process selected workloads. Soon thereafter, SSA suspended deployment and shifted its focus to systems development in order to address user feedback. This year, we received feedback from 120 users and found that they generally liked working with the new system, but they would like to see some additional functionality. We also reported that participating DDSs use the system to process about 4% of their total workloads. SSA plans to resume deploying DCPS soon, with the goal of delivering the system to a majority of the DDSs by the end of 2019. SSA has spent $101 million on the new version of DCPS, and it anticipates an additional $76 million over the next 4 years. To date, the new version has been implemented at more DDSs than the previous iteration, and its estimated cost is about half of what SSA invested in the prior effort. Nonetheless, the agency still needs to address risk that may undermine successful implementation of the new system. One such risk involves convincing DDSs to adopt this technology. For DCPS to be deployed and utilized nationwide, the project requires diligent oversight and continued user involvement. As the agency moves forward with its IT modernization, it is imperative that it also give proper attention to security. In our most recent annual audit of SSA's information security program, we identified a number of control deficiencies that may limit the agency's ability to adequately protect its systems. SSA needs to make addressing these deficiencies a priority. Thank you for the invitation to discuss these issues. We will continue to work with the agency and this subcommittee to address these important issues. Finally, I want to commend the chairman as he concludes a decorated and distinguished career in service to our country. On behalf of the OIG, thank you, Chairman Johnson, for your service, your sacrifice, and your leadership. This concludes my statement. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that comment, and thank you for your statement. Ms. Harris, welcome. Please proceed.
Chairman Johnson, Ranking Member Larson, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting us to testify today on the Social Security Administration's management of IT. As requested, I'll briefly summarize our work on the agency's management of IT acquisitions and operations and the authorities of its Chief Information Officer. As you know, SSA is responsible for delivering services that impact almost every American, and the agency extensively relies on IT resources to do so. Its computerized information systems support a wide range of activities, such as calculating and withholding Medicare premiums and issuing Social Security numbers and cards. For fiscal year 2018, the agency plans to spend approximately $1.6 billion on hardware, software, computer maintenance, and contractor support. SSA has long been challenged in its management of IT. Our past reports from 2004 to 2012 have highlighted various weaknesses in the agency's systems development practices, governance, and requirements management. As such, we stress the need for SSA to strengthen its IT management controls. Between 2011 and 2018, we made 15 recommendations to SSA aimed at improving IT management and operations in the areas of data center consolidation, incremental software development, IT acquisition strategies, and software licenses. I'm pleased to report that as of today, Social Security Administration has fully addressed 14 of the 15 recommendations. Accordingly, SSA is better positioned to more effectively manage its IT. For example, in May 2014, we reported that SSA was one of 22 agencies lacking a robust software license management policy, as well as a comprehensive inventory of software licenses. Without these tools, agencies would not be able to systematically identify unused software and achieve savings. SSA has since established both a comprehensive policy and inventory and is equipped to more effectively manage its software licenses. Additionally, last year, we reported the agency lacked a complete data center optimization plan. We emphasize that without such a plan, SSA might not achieve OMB's data center optimization targets or realize its expected savings. The agency implemented the related recommendation, and in May of this year, we found that SSA reported the most progress among 22 applicable agencies in meeting OMB's targets. While SSA has made noteworthy progress to improve its management of IT, more work is needed to fully address the role of its CIO in its policies. Various laws and related guidance assign IT management responsibilities to CIOs in 6 key areas. And in August 2018, we reported that of the 6 areas, SSA's policies only fully address 1. Specifically, the agency's policies fully address the CIO's role in IT leadership and accountability by requiring the CIO to report directly to the agency head. In contrast, the agency's policies do not address the IT workforce area at all, including requirements for the CIO to assess agency IT workforce needs and develop strategies and plans for meeting those needs. In addition, the agency's policies only minimally address the area of IT strategic planning, lacking requirements for the CIO to measure how well IT supports agency programs and to report annually on progress in achieving goals for improving agency operations. Accordingly, we made a recommendation to SSA to address the policy weaknesses in 5 management areas. In response, the agency agreed and indicated it planned to implement the recommendation by the end of this month. It will be especially important for SSA to ensure that the policies for its CIO responsibilities are robust, given its high turnover of CIOs. Since 2004, the average tenure of SSA's CIO is 1.8 years. Our work has shown that a CIO should stay in office for 3 to 5 years to be effective and 5 to 7 years to fully implement major change initiatives in large public sector organizations. If SSA fully implements our recommendation, it will be better positioned to attract and retain high-quality CIOs when there is a leadership vacancy, while also maintaining continuity of IT operations when leadership changes occur. That concludes my statement, and I look forward to addressing your questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As is customary for each round of questions, I'll limit my time to 5 minutes, and we'll ask my colleagues to also limit their questioning time to 5 minutes as well. Mr. Mathar, modernizing Social Security IT is a huge challenge. And how are you making sure that this project is done on time and does not have cost overruns?
Chairman Johnson, thank you for that question. Our IT modernization plan, as you noted, we published in October of last year. As I noticed in my opening remarks, that we're on schedule and we're on budget. We have an accountable executive for the IT modernization plan. He's sitting right here behind me. And we have accountable executives for every initiative within the IT modernization plan. We have a number of controls and governance in place with oversight. And this really is a management effort for us to make sure that we are constantly delivering value. I'll close with the following point when it comes to modernization and what we're doing. Our approach to this is to make sure that whatever we're working on within the modernization effort is very focused on the customer, whether it's the frontline employee or a member of the public, and being able to deliver that value early and often, and then making sure we have that feedback loop is an important way to make sure you're on track. That's the way, and that's a private sector industry standard to be able to have that quick feedback loop.
You had any complaints so far?
I would say that our users, especially our business customers, have been pleased with the progress we've been making. And the complaint, if there's one in that regard, is go faster. How do we go faster? How do we deliver more value? So that's been the focus for us.
Well, in your testimony, you stated the estimated cost for the disability case processing system was $177 million. Isn't that an increase from the previous estimates that you gave us? And why did they increase?
Sir, as you may know, DCPS2 is currently in 10 DDSs and soon to be 14. We are talking with another 34 in terms of rollout to those 34 DDSs. The DCPS2 project is grounded in making sure it's delivering value and working with these DDSs that it's already in. And so we have a DCPS steering committee, which consists of state administrators and many of the states that currently use this DCPS2 product. As we get feedback, and as we got feedback, on what additional functionality was needed in the product, we roll that into the roadmap. And that was the basis for that increase in cost.
Do you expect any more increases, or are you going to stay on target?
We're staying on target, sir. We are always managing that roadmap and what that product lineup looks like.
Well, thank you. And you don't expect any more increases in the future?
So we are managing that product very closely. I am personally involved, as well as agency leadership. And I will say that in constantly talking with the users, we are managing what we deliver and when we deliver it early and often, as I mentioned. So that if the user requirements end up changing, we'll modify the roadmap. At this point, I think we have a roadmap that I'm very comfortable with, and that's what we'll deliver on.
Well, the modern approach to IT development can make it hard to tell if a project's on track because requirements change as development progresses. As CIO, how do you make sure that the modern development projects you oversee are going to stay on track?
I would refer to my private sector experience, which is that we are looking for value. That's been the mantra that we've been following when it comes to DCPS2 or our IT modernization efforts. So as long as we are having the conversation on a regular basis with our end users, that's how we make sure we're delivering value and we stay on track. There's a quick example I'd give you, if I could, sir, on sure. If you were remodeling your kitchen and your contractor said, come back to me in a year and I'll let you know what it looks like, you're probably not going to get what you want. But if you were able to look at it every day, every week, you can probably tweak the direction. That's the model we're using when it comes to modernization.
So what you're telling me is you're staying on top of it.
We are.
Thank you. And Ms. Harris, what are your thoughts on the project?
Well, I think regardless of the approach that you take, whether it's a more modern, agile approach or the more traditional waterfall approach to software development, you're always going to need sound project management. That management is just going to look different in this more modern, agile approach. Agile essentially means you take these traditional monolithic large scoped projects and you break them out into these small increments so that you're delivering software every 6 to 12 months. I'm glad to hear Rajiv talking about a roadmap, because in this modern approach, that's your baseline for measuring progress from a cost and schedule perspective, as well as the performance and the delivery of what's being planned for. And so as long as Rajiv and his accountable executive are measuring against this roadmap, that's how we're going to be able to tell whether progress is being made as planned.
Are we on track?
Well, I can't speak specifically to DCPS, but he is using at least the right words in terms of what you would expect in a well-managed program, particularly that roadmap.
That's what we all have to do, is use the right words, right? Oh, yeah, I'll recognize you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mathor, you used the term person-centric in your opening remarks, and couldn't agree with you more, especially with 10,000 baby boomers a day becoming eligible for Social Security. How do you carry that out from an IT perspective for both the citizens we serve as well as the employees that have to make sure that as they deal with their day-to-day work with delivering Social Security, that this transpires?
Congressman, person-centric is an important term among a number of other terms that we use. It's a philosophy, and I'll describe it in the following way. Today, when a member of the public walks into a field office, they'll get great service, and we know that. But the representative on the other side of the bench is looking through multiple systems, multiple screens, making sure that they get the right information to serve that customer. That takes time. It's a possibility for errors, and it's confusing, right? This person-centric approach, and the example I'll use is that this fiscal year, we are looking to deploy the first version of the Universal Customer View, which is a single portal for everything that a technician may need to know about a member of the public that's coming in. So you can see your transactions, you can see your history with the SSA. That's where the ideal is, correct? That's person-centric. So if we're engineering that experience, that business process for that end user customer and the frontline employee, we'll then be able to make sure that that process works and the technology underlying the process works.
Had a number of conversations on the committee, but specifically with Representative Schweikert, and I wanted to get your opinion on blockchain as a technology and how you see, if you do see that as having an impact as we move forward in terms of the delivery of a service, and how that might be utilized, and if Social Security is considering that.
Great question. I would say blockchain, as well as other technologies, these are things that I'm tracking. We're tracking. We're not using it yet. We're in the early stages of looking at it. J.P. Morgan Chase, for example, is using some version of it. Again, relatively early. It has promise. It has promise in various applications. I can certainly give you some examples, but it's something we're tracking.
Well, could you give me some examples? Because this is a conversation that's ongoing, and certainly we want to do everything that we can to try to both look forward and streamline our process, make it more person-centric, but also hopefully utilize the technology that's at our disposal. We wouldn't want to overlook something that could be a game changer, and also from a cost-effective and efficient standpoint, be helpful to us.
Sure. One example is a provider directory. So we're using today the medical providers that are the directories, the category, the classification of medical providers all over the nation is always changing. It's always in flux, always a chance for error, whether it's contact info, whether they're still licensed or not licensed. That's a changing piece of information that our technicians rely on to be able to contact these providers for records, et cetera. Using blockchain, which would distribute the information and let the local providers, in a secure way, still be able to update their provider records that we would then be allowed to use, would be an example to have the most up-to-date information about providers at any given time. If we're responsible for it, we have enough to do, and it's tough to get it all right in that regard. But if the people who are responsible for that data can update it when they need to do it securely, then we can get that information. That's one example.
One of the overarching, this is for all the panelists, one of the overarching concerns that this chairman has always been focused on is certainly identity theft and everything that as it's related to Social Security. What does Congress need to do in terms of assisting you, and what is the SSA doing with respect to making sure that people's identity is protected?
Congressman, identity is core for what SSA does. It's part of what the agency was started on with the SSN. We take it very seriously when it comes to protection of a person's identity. We have a plan in place and that we're executing on to confirm our NIST guidelines, which are 863-3 guidelines for digital identity guidelines. And that will allow us to be able to continue to protect. We have a number of controls in place now, but we always have to stay ahead of this issue.
Ms. Harris, what do you think about that?
I can't speak specifically to SSA, but certainly cybersecurity and the protection of personally identifiable information is one of the key high-risk areas on GAO's top high-risk list. And that's certainly something that our Comptroller General has spoken quite a bit about as one of the top priorities that the federal government should be focused in on.
Stone.
I'll take a slightly different angle on this and say that because identity theft or there have been security breaches where personally identifiable information has been confiscated by guys who want to commit fraud, I would say the approach or the focus at SSA has to be on authenticating the individuals that want to come in and do business with the agency to make sure that the person applying for those benefits is actually the real number holder.
You wanted to respond further?
I would add that identity theft and knowing who you do business with, as we do more and more digital services, this is a very important a problem, certainly. It's a societal problem. And we are working with other federal agencies as well, so that there's a way to be able to counter this across federal government and, frankly, with the private sector as well. We all have the same needs when it comes to identifying that individual.
Thank you. Mr. Bishop, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I could, I'd like to begin by building on the words of gratitude and reverence for your service to this country and for all that you've done, your service to Congress, your service to the subcommittee, and all that you've done for those who depend on Social Security in this country, for your service to the country as a hero in the United States Air Force. I got into this job a year and a half ago, not a little bit more than that, actually, but it seems like yesterday. And I did it because I left the private sector because I believed in my country. I'm a student of history and government. I felt as though I had to do something for my country, and I believe in my country. I love my country. And I am so grateful to be able to serve here, so honored to serve here, but it really blows my mind to think that I have the opportunity to serve with someone like you. And for the honor to know you, to be a part of this committee has been just incredible for me. So, sir, your country thanks you. We all thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for making this experience something I will never forget. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I just want to, if I could, then build on the theme that we've been talking about with regard to customer centric and end customer and frontline employee. I've said this before, and we've been talking about it before because I had the opportunity to introduce with Ranking Member Larson the Improving Social Security Service to Victims of Identity Theft Act, which I think is so very important. All of our constituents talk about identity theft and ways that we can improve that. I'm encouraged to hear what you've been talking about with regard to your IT projects. Mr. Mathor, I was wondering if you could just share with me, when it comes to IT projects like this at SSA, how do you determine who's responsible for the project's success or failure, and how do you hold them accountable?
Thank you for that question. As I mentioned, we do have accountable executives starting at the top and then laddering down for the IT projects that we have. When it comes to modernization projects, for example, we have a business and IT lead that are responsible for that effort. Regardless of what kind of effort it is, there's always a business user that we need to make sure we're catering to, and there's an executive that's managing that effort. It's an important part. I continue to meet with all the major investments that we make, and my leadership team does as well. We have direct oversight over the efforts that we have when it comes to these major projects. It's a constant management need to be able to hold people accountable, to make sure you're meeting those dates and delivering value. I think the key thing that I would say is that the focus on value is what helps ground me and what I'd like to see. If one of the things I've said internally to our team is we're going to be communicating horizontally as opposed to up the chain of command, across and down. In a large organization, that happens frequently. So you got to have the business customer in the room so they can hold each other accountable, that they're accountable to each other and to us.
So that roadmap that you're working on and the org chart of the folks that are working on that roadmap are all aware, working together on that same roadmap. Do they have a direct line of communication with you? Is that how that works? And is this process a kind of a Gantt chart within the roadmap where you have certain tasks to finish within a certain amount of time? I'm just interested to know what the management process is.
So the roadmap it's a multi-year roadmap. The roadmap's developed with the business and IT owners together, not just one group or the other, focusing on multiple deliverables early and often, always delivering a piece of capability, a piece of software, whether you buy it or whether you build it. The level of dialogue that we have, we've introduced a function called product management. That's as part of it's a product orientation for how we look at anything. It's customer driven. Whenever you're delivering a capability, you're looking at it as a product and service. So that role plus the project manager are managing the day-to-day, and then making sure that the business and IT users and leadership is also apprised of it.
Mr. Thor, thank you. And I have several other questions. I know that we have limited time, so I'll yield back the time. Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would also like to thank you for your sacrifice in Vietnam. Thank you for your service in the Congress here. Your examples of humility and sacrifice will stay with all of us. And while you may be retiring and moving on, your legacy will live on because we'll be back here in the Sam Johnson room many times, and we'll be thinking about you often and the example that you left for all of us. So thank you, sir. It's an honor to serve with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mather, during the original rollout of the DCPS beta, my state of Illinois had some challenges with functionality. Since the success of DCPS 2 depends on states voluntarily adopting the system, what steps is SSA taken to encourage adoption, particularly to states like mine who had challenges last time?
Congressman, DCPS 2, as you mentioned, has had a successful rollout to 10 states, with 4 to come, as I'd mentioned earlier. We are developing the capabilities for DCPS2 in lockstep with what the steering committee and the business users are looking for, the DDSs are looking for, including the state of Illinois. And I would say that over time, as more and more capabilities get developed, I can't imagine why a state wouldn't want, or a DDS wouldn't want to use that capability, since they helped design it. The system is being designed by users for users. So my hope is that, and my goal is a nationwide common case processing system, and that's where we think DCPS2 can get us there.
And what happens, or what are the consequences if state doesn't use the new system?
Well, I think we would have to address that when and if that time comes. My hope is that it wouldn't come, because the product is going to meet their needs.
Thank you. Let me switch to another subject, Mr. Mather. Federal laws and regulations have been pretty clear that agencies should first look to the private sector for solutions to their IT needs. But communication between the SSA and industry hasn't always been easy. How does SSA engage with industry to identify potential IT solutions? And as a follow-up to that, can you expound or comment a little bit upon the IT Transformation Industry Day that I know you recently hosted?
So my bias is towards buying and not building. As part of our investment process, whenever we're looking at any sort of need that we're trying to fulfill with technology, we must look at external solutions, other government agencies, shared solutions, and then of course the internal solution. So we have to have a bias towards finding out what we can build, what we can buy externally, and then use it internally. That's the way I'm wired. That's what I'd like to continue to do, and that's part of our process. It's part of the policy that we have in place. The IT Industry Day that we had back in June, we had over 200 members of industry that were part of the session. We had 5 different topics. It's a virtual industry day. It was a great model, the first time we'd ever done it, where we presented some ideas on what we were looking for. We got some good questions, some good feedback, follow-up from industry. We hope to repeat that process again and again. Recently, we also met with Johns Hopkins for blockchain and for AI as another example of outreach. I mean, this is something that we continue to do and get better at, but we need to do more of it.
Well, thank you. We look forward to working with you on that. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I begin, I just want to add my voice to those who have already thanked you for the many years of your service to the Congress and on this committee. We are sad to see you go. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. It kind of baffles me that one of the richest countries in the world that is at the forefront of technological innovation has inadequate and outdated technology operating within the walls of its government. So I'm particularly pleased that the Social Security Administration is making such progress with its IT modernization plan. I know that you're investing several $100 million to update the existing operating system, and clearly it's long overdue if you guys have equipment that you're using that dates back to the 1950s. No doubt, just having that older technology is tough to maintain and slow to operate. And obviously it can be very inefficient, I guess, and wasteful even. For example, I know that SSA spent about $1.6 billion on IT in fiscal year 2018. That's over 10% of its total operating budget. And that's $1 billion that went into just maintaining an out-of-date operating system. So I think it's high time that we make an investment in our technological infrastructure that will hopefully improve service and security as well. My question is for Commissioner Mather. What sort of efficiencies do you think are going to be realized through IT modernization? And most specifically, is it going to help in terms of being able to get faster decisions and processing of benefits for constituents?
Thank you for that question. the efficiencies that let me give you one example of one efficiency that we think we can get to. So I talked earlier about the Universal Customer View, which is a single portal which allows our technicians to see interactions that a member of the public has had with SSA, any communications they've had, and it allows them to not thumb through many different screens and just get to everything all in one place. In fiscal 19, we're also going to be coming up with a minimum viable product for a pre-claim system. And what that is a single claims path, regardless of the type of benefit that you're looking for. Today, when you walk into a field office or interacting with a technician, they're figuring out what they need to, what you may be eligible for. The pre-claim system is a single way for them to be able to ask the right questions and be able to determine in an efficient way with appropriate branching and logic what you may be eligible for as a member of the public. So that's one small example, but an important one.
So I'm assuming it will result in faster processing times and,
more efficient.
Processing of benefits.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I know that the Social Security Administration keeps records of people's personally identifiable information. And obviously, in this increasingly high-tech world, a concern that we all share is the safety of protecting that information. I'm guessing, but I would like to hear from you, that older technology probably is more vulnerable to breaches in the system. So is the IT modernization going to help strengthen the agency's ability to safeguard that personal information? Will that make our information safer as well?
We are always staying ahead and staying on top of the security of the systems. As someone mentioned earlier, the continuity of operations is paramount for the agency, and making sure that they're secure is certainly important. In terms of IT modernization, security is built in. It's not retrofitted after the fact. So as we're going through the development of these various efforts, cyber needs, authentication, assuming that someone's going to be interacting with us on the internet, which is different than 20, 30 years ago where they might be calling in. Those assumptions are now built into the process.
So will that result in?
That will result in
better safeguards for
better, more flexible safeguards. Yes.
Perfect. Those are all the questions I have. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Swackert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's hard to think of this room without you sitting in that chair, chairing it. For those of us who hope to stay on this subcommittee in the future, we'll always look up and see your name there. Now, thank you for your incredible service to all of us as the phone goes off. But thank you. It's being someone now, my wife this summer actually read your book, and you brought her to both tears and joy. So it's a recommendation for everyone. Ms. Harris, simple question, and just conceptually, should the IRS actually even own its own servers in a world where encrypted cloud is becoming ubiquitous? Is that a vision for you?
I'm sorry, sir. I have personally not done work at IRS, so I'm not the best expert to weigh in on that.
But then how about for Social Security?
Within Social Security Administration, I also have not done that specific level of work, so unfortunately, it's out of scope of the work that I have done.
All right, sorry. I was going to sort of go through the larger agencies. For anyone, has there been studies for Social Security, Medicare, others, to actually make the decision, is maintaining their own server farms still appropriate?
I'll take a crack at it. So we have a cloud smart policy when it comes to any capabilities that are being developed. So as we're considering what the hosting is going to be for a particular software application, it makes sense by default to think about the cloud, but making sure that it's the right application, that it has the right profile for safety, for security, and that you're not just putting something on the cloud because...
But I thought most of the safety and security concerns are now a few years old, and the ability to encrypt and split and multi and co-locate.
It's a fair point. It's the application, but it's also the data behind the scenes that need to be that these applications sometimes need to access. So the location of the data may help drive where the application gets hosted, whether it gets hosted on the cloud or not. So the point I would make is that it's not by default hosted within our data. It shouldn't be hosted by the government, or it could be hosted in a private cloud, or it could be hosted in a public cloud. I mean, there's a number of different stages of decision making that could and should happen. That's how we're approaching it.
Okay. All right. If you have something I can read or something like that, because it's not a particularly satisfying answer, could we actually sort of do a quick walkthrough of the legacy systems, and when will there be the last day that you'll be running, functionally a Cobalt with a bolt-on on front of it? When will those legacy systems be gone? That legacy code.
Congressman, our IT mod plan substantially will make a dent and remove legacy technology, legacy code, not just COBOL, but other legacy codes, code types that we have, assembler and others. Here's the challenge we're facing, which is continuity of operations, making sure that you can deliver those services when somebody walks into the field office or calls the teleservice center. That has to always be on and operational.
But wasn't the original plan to run parallels and then do the transfer over?
That's exactly right.
And so shouldn't that actually mean there is a target switch date if you're running parallels?
So the plan is to have a parallel operation, but once we have launched, once we have put something in the market and it works, at that point we start retiring. Right? It doesn't happen. It happens. It's rolling thunder. So we'll be developing capabilities, launching them, having frontline employees use them, having members of the whole use them, and then doing the migration. So it's not that we'll be retiring at one specific date. It'll be happening throughout the plan.
So back to the original question, when do you see in your techno-utopian future, when the legacy codes and the bolt-on and the bolt-on and the bolt-on are gone?
So I see that the mod plan will substantially remove that. That's a 5-year plan.
Okay, so is the goal in 5 years to no longer have legacy code, or is it 25 years? I mean, what's your best guess?
I think it's going to be substantially gone in 5 years, but it won't be 100% gone in 5 years.
Okay.
Because in some cases, it may not make sense for us to migrate an old legacy technology to a modern. It may not make business sense, and that analysis to be able to look at. Excuse me.
Okay, and I'm so sorry. We have something, because in the last few seconds, my friend actually spoke about my fixation on blockchain and distributed ledger, and that future for where everyone who is a potential beneficiary can pick this up and basically track their own files, see who's looked at their files, when did they actually moved in paper, and yet have levels of permission and encryption and security. And where I was going to go before is my sort of techno-utopian fantasy of I could see my benefits, I could see my IRS tax records, I could actually see my military discharge, I could see everything sort of in a common portal. And I fear a lot of my big agencies with massive data haven't really begun to talk to each other of could we ever sort of unify a platform, probably on a distributive ledger, with the proper encryption and provide those services to the American public. So that's sort of a last. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for your tolerance.
Thank you. And Mr. Rice, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the years of being able to learn from you and your mentorship, and I appreciate so much your service to our country. I'm just frustrated with the progress on the technology improvement in Social Security. I think one of the big problems is maybe, we haven't done a great job of holding people accountable, but Ms. Harris, you mentioned about the roadmap, and that a roadmap is a good start, but you also said you weren't familiar with it. So you don't work with Social Security?
No, we do audits of their IT management and operations. We have received their IT modernization plan, and we've taken a look at it. On the surface, it looks very good, but we have not done the detailed dive into it to look at the meat of it. At least not yet.
Why? I mean, you're the Government Accountability Office. You're supposed to hold people accountable. They send you the roadmap. Seems to me like you would have somebody watching them every month, right? Why don't you haven't done a detailed dive into it?
Well, we do have limited resources, and the work that we do is driven by congressional requests and mandates, and because we have not been mandated to do that detailed dive, we simply cannot do that work.
So you're the Government Accountability Office, but you're not going to hold them accountable?
Well, we do hold them accountable in terms of the recommendations that we have made. We do, over a 4-year period after the recommendation is made, ensure that we continue to monitor them to determine to what extent they have implemented our recommendations.
Mrs. Stone, you said that you're trying to migrate to a single case management system, right? Yes, ma'am.
I apologize. The agency is.
Yes, ma'am. How many case management systems do they have now?
Each of the 52 DDSs previously had their own individual systems, which gave rise to the need for the.
And they don't talk to each other, and you can't move cases back and forth between. So it's remarkably and horrifically inefficient, right?
Complicated.
Yeah. So you said you tried to roll one in 2008. Did that for 7 years. It didn't work. You pulled it and you started a new one, right? And you spent $300 million along the way. Isn't that what you said?
Yes, sir. But just as a clarification, OIG itself did not do that, but those were decisions of the agency. Yeah. And as a part of our audit work, we identified those scenarios.
Okay, so you're supposed to be holding them accountable too, right?
Yes, sir.
You're there, right? You're You're in Social Security. So what's the timeline? Okay, you said you put this new case management system in place in 2016, and what did you say, three offices?
3 DDSs, yes.
How many DDSs do you have?
52.
52 DDSs. So you put it in place in 3. Which 3 were those?
I don't have those.
Okay, all right. So you tried it in 3 for a little while. How long?
I'll defer to
How long?
the agency.
How long did we
try it in those 3 DDS?
We are trying and continue to try, and then they're using them now.
Okay.
In fact, now it's 10, soon to be 14.
I thought you said you stopped using it. I thought you said you tried it, you pulled back, you asked for feedback, and then you're going to go in again. That's what you said. That's what you said.
May I clarify?
Yes, ma'am.
So in 2016, it rolled out to 3. In 2017, it rolled out to 10. And instead of deploying it to additional DDSs, they stopped further deployment so that they could focus on look at modifying the software based on feedback from those DDSs that were currently using it.
Okay, I have about a million questions, and I got 1 minute. But this case management software that you're using, is it off the shelf, or is it something you're developing?
We looked at market options, Congressman. This is an in-house developed. The requirements for the DDSs and our business process in general is a very complex. There's nothing out there that is going to be plug and play in terms of off the shelf. So we have looked at market. We're doing market research right now as well.
I really don't think that what you're doing is all that unique. I really don't. And I don't know why in the world you couldn't find something off the shelf. Who's developing this? Is it is it the IT department that's overseeing the COBOL systems?
It's it's a combination of our business partner, our internal business partner, as well as our IT group.
What does that mean, business partner?
So the user that'll eventually use the software. They're
So
like
it's
they're
just
hand in
like
hand.
One of the DDSs you're talking about.
No, it's an internal organization that's working with the DDSs and the steering
What's
committee.
the name of that?
Operations.
Operations. So they're not a business partner, they're part of the government.
Part of the
right?
government, yeah.
Okay, and then one last question, Mr. Chairman. I know I'm going over by. Who's making these decisions? I mean, do you have any kind of outside consultant, or do you guys just doing this in-house? Are y'all making these decisions about if you're going to design it yourself or if you're going to buy off the shelf? And if you're going to buy off the shelf, who the vendor's going to be? Are y'all just doing that in-house, or do you have somebody who really, is in this business of IT trying to help you with this? I hope, please, God, tell me you do.
We do have expertise that we use
In-house.
It's in-house. It's
Okay.
in-house experts. It's
Okay.
private sector expertise that as well as government expertise. Part of our process is to look at these options. That's part of what we have to do, and that's one of the things that I have made sure that it's part of our policy.
Okay, I would like to see a list of the major systems that you have that you want to replace, and I'd like to see a timeline for that. I mean, I heard Mr. Schweikert trying to pin you down on when you thought you'd be rid of COBOL, and I heard you dance for a minute and a half on not answering his question because you don't want to pin yourself down. But part of our job, and I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, part of our job is to hold you accountable. I don't hear her holding you accountable. I'm not sure I hear her holding you accountable. Part of our job is to hold you accountable. And I want you to tell me what your problems are, how you're going to fix them, and what the timeline is going to be to get that done. And I don't want it to be, I don't expect you to give yourself unreasonable timelines, but it's got to be something that we can hold you to rather than this fuzzy dancing around, well, we're not sure, and we'll get rid of most of it by this date.
May I respond? We have a plan. I think the conversation, in your opening remarks, a big need is in fact having a strategy, having a plan. We have a plan and a roadmap that's 5 years. That's a substantial amount of time that will get us substantially there to remove a lot of this legacy software. And the removal of the software, the removal of the technology, the legacy technology is going to happen as we go through the plan. It's not going to be there's no one final end date, but there's a lot of many wins that are happening all the way through. Every time we roll something out, we retire. Roll something out, we retire. That repeated phenomenon is what you're going to see, and that's what we're holding ourselves accountable for as well.
I'm so sorry. One last yes or no question. Are you still using any magnetic media?
I believe we may be, but not part of our core. But I can get you an answer for the record, sir.
Is he done? He's done. Well, that was a good line of questions. Thank you for them. Social Security IT is critical to providing Americans with the service they expect and deserve. And while Social Security has taken steps to modernize its IT programs, there's still work to be done, which is obvious after those questions. Social Security also needs to do a better job using the private sector to keep costs down and projects on schedule. Social Security's IT is too important not to get it right. Americans want, need, and deserve no less. I want to thank you to our witnesses for their testimony. Thank you for being here. Thank you also to our members for being here. And thank you to everybody who has helped the subcommittee accomplish so much over the years. With that, the subcommittee stands adjourned.